Hello and welcome back to the Wrestling Group on YouTube. Today we have another rankings video, and today it is top 5 matches of the American hero, the Olympic gold medalist, Kurt Angle himself. Kurt had a phenomenal career. I mean, I don't have to explain it. If you know wrestling, you know who Kurt Angle is. He's had fantastic matches, to go from the Olympics as a gold medal winner and come over and then learn the sports entertainment aspect of it. Being in WWF during the Attitude Era, and then the start of the Ruthless Aggression Era. And then for me, having his best year of his career in 2005, 2006, just before he left then to go on to TNA. And you know what, he is one of, I wouldn't say the few, because they had some successful people, but he's one of the most successful people to jump from WWE to TNA. Kurt Angle, Christian, Jeff Hardy, and he is fantastic, and he's had some absolute fantastic matches. So I just thought, you know what, I was thinking of who to do next, and I was thinking of some of my favourite matches, and I thought, you know what, I've got quite a couple of Kurt Angle matches that are my favourite matches. So I thought, we'll go with Kurt Angle and do a top 5 and see how we get on. So that's what I did. So as always, I've took time out. I've watched numerous matches and I've made a list. And you know what? I think this is one of the hardest ones. And I will say it quite a few times, but this is definitely one of the harder ones for me. And I did actually contemplate changing it to top 10, just so I could have certain matches in, because I did put matches in and then take them out, and then it was like put them back in and take them back out. So anyway, I've gone with top 5 because obviously, like I say, I try and keep them at 5 because I don't want the videos going too long because people lose interest and stuff. But yeah, I feel like it could easily have been a top 10. So anyway, as always, we'll come down from 5 down to 1, and then if you leave me your comments and let me know whether you agree with my list or whether there's anyone that I've missed out, or if you've got like a completely different list altogether, then just let me know in the comments. I'd love to see what everyone else's top 5 are. So we'll start at number 5, and I have gone for Kurt Angle versus Samoa Joe in the cage match, Lockdown 2008. Now, Samoa Joe and Kurt Angle is fantastic. Like, when you think of Kurt Angle in TNA, you can't not think of Kurt versus Samoa Joe. They had some absolute bangers, especially that debut. Samoa Joe was undefeated at the time. Kurt Angle comes in, headbutts him, busts him wide open. It was just like, that's probably not match wise, but moments. That was probably my absolute favourite moments in TNA history. That debut and the headbutts heard around the world as they were going, and it made people take notice. TNA fans were like, "Oh my God, Samoa Joe's been undefeated for just about 2 years." And Kurt Angle comes across, and obviously it's not like they've never known who Kurt Angle is. He's one of the biggest names in wrestling. So, but then he went on to have like banger matches, didn't he? Genesis 06 was the first one. I think they'd done the original trilogy, and then this was like a year, 2 years later. And you know what? Like, I'd probably say at least 3 out of the 4 matches that I'm thinking of, obviously the original trilogy and then this match, could have quite possibly made it into this list. Like you say, when you think of Kurt Angle and TNA, you definitely think of Kurt versus Joe, and this was like the MMA style cage match, wasn't it? We seen Angle in black trunks and taped up feet. For the first time, we didn't see him in a singlet that he's used to doing. and it was just brutal, more knees and kicks and stuff. And like I say, it was like MMA style, and it wasn't something that we'd really seen in wrestling before. And who better to go with than obviously Samoa Joe and Kurt Angle. And there's this one part in it that I absolutely loved. It's right near the end, and Kurt gets Samoa Joe in the ankle lock, and he's gone on for a while. And you think, oh, Joe's gonna tap here, because at this point they'd both beaten each other as well, so it wasn't like, it was more favouring one of them. And it was for the TNA World Title, and he's got him in this ankle lock, and he's proper stretching him and that, and you think, he's gonna tap now. And the way that Joe reversed it was superb. He goes to get over onto his side, and as he goes over, he uses his foot to kick and push up Kurt Angle. So he uses his foot to push him up in the air, to shove him off. So push him up in the air, and obviously Joe's on his back. So as Angle comes down, he catches him in the kick and clutch. And I was just like, oh my god, that is superb. Just because it's quite quick the way he does it. So he turns over, kicks him up, catches him as he comes down in the choke. I was like, that is brilliant. Angle then gets to the ropes. Referee breaks the hold, and then Samoa Joe hits a muscle buster, and Joe wins the TNA World Title. But see, the thing I really love about TNA is that they put full pay-per-views, not just matches. They put full pay-per-views available to watch on YouTube. So especially when I'm going back and doing these videos and stuff, it's so easy to go and watch TNA stuff. You can watch individual matches, like this is up as an individual match, or the whole pay-per-view's up, so it's up to you which you'd rather choose. But obviously, if you haven't seen it, I'd recommend going out your way to watch it, and it's on, like I say, it's available on YouTube, so it is so easy to access the TNA stuff, which is brilliant to know, and it's better, isn't it? It's great that it's on YouTube. Like, if you don't know what to watch, and you just literally just type in TNA into YouTube, or Impact into YouTube, and there's a full category there, and you just go, I forgot all about that, and just take it on, you know what I mean? So like I say, if you haven't seen it, or if you just want to rewatch it, it is available to watch on YouTube. But that comes in as my number 5. So let's have a look. Number 4, another TNA one. Like I say, Kurt Angle was successful in TNA, and I do believe he did have some of the best matches of his career in TNA as well. Like, it always shocked me when Kurt left. Christian, not so much, because he wasn't really doing a lot in WWE. They weren't pushing him as the main eventer. Jeff Hardy didn't surprise me either, but like Kurt Angle definitely surprised me at the time when he did leave, especially for me. Like, Kurt Angle in WWE in 2005 and 2006 is his best run. I mean, I don't know if everyone agrees with that, but just before they put him in ECW, by the way, not the ECW angle. But when he was world champion, when he won that battle royal, by taking Mark Henry over the top rope, and becoming world champ, and he changed his theme tune up a little bit, made it more intense, and he was like a wrestling machine, wasn't he? He was exactly the way he should have been. And then he come off the back of that to go into TNA, and I had some brilliant matches. So like I say, I've gone for against AJ Styles, a Hard Justice. Now this is the last man standing match, and to be honest with you, it's mad. Like, looking back on it now, like I say, his best years were like 2006, and I've just picked 2 matches back to back from 2008. But like I say, he did have some great matches in TNA, but and it is mad looking back now, because like there were certain times in TNA that I was in it like right at the beginning, and I'd watch it for a good while. It was only accessible to me when I used to go to my dad's, because he had Sky TV. As it was on there, he had, I think it was Ring of Honor first on Sky TV. I can't remember the channel, like the wrestling channel, I think it was. I'm sure there was a wrestling channel. And he'd have like an hour of Ring of Honor, or 2 hours of Ring of Honor, and then he'd have like an hour or 2 of Impact. And so it was like 4 hours of wrestling till like 1 o'clock in the morning. I had school the next day. It was great. So my dad had always fall asleep first. I've lost what I was saying now. So yeah, so I was in and out and that, and then obviously with TNA, they'd done a lot of matches that were a lot different to anyone else from what they were doing. You know, like King of the Mountain match, Lethal Lockdown, and that was a massive thing that drew me to TNA, not just the talent that was there. Because when I first started watching it, it was like obviously Chris Sabin, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels. You know, some great talent there, and then later on, Christian Cage, Kurt Angle, Jeff Hardy all attracted me back. But yeah, they were doing all these different matches not seen before. So like with this match, the last man standing match is not just a straightforward knock your opponent down 1, 2, 3 to 10. It was you had to pin them first. And I don't know whether this was the first version of the last man standing match where it was like that I'd seen, but it is the first one that I kind of remember watching. So I was like watching this like last man standing match, and I must have not seen the rules or whatever at the beginning. It was like say I wasn't watching, like it wasn't accessible, or I didn't know it was accessible to watch online. So I was only watching like once a week, once every 2 weeks, depending on when I managed to go to see my dad and stay over. And so I was sitting there and watching it. It was like last man standing match, and then they're pinning each other. I was like, what's going on here? So then obviously they explained you have to pin your opponent, and then you do the count to 10. So it's basically like count to 13, really, isn't it? Which I thought was mad at the time, but you know, I like when companies go and try and make their own matches, but as long as it works. I mean, sometimes it is hard, and at first some people might not like it. Like the King of the Mountain match, it's like a reverse ladder match, isn't it? But anyway, you know, AJ Styles is Mr. TNA for me. He's fantastic, and the fact that they had so many good matches, Kurt Angle and AJ Styles, like AJ was like a high flyer. He was going up into the main event scene, the main division, and obviously Kurt Angle is well known worldwide. And just some of the matches they had were great, but for me this was brilliant. You know, I think it went for about 40 minutes. You know, and we even got to see Kurt Angle go on for a Styles clash, which by the way, I wanted him to hit. I really wanted to see that, but it was great because it was reversed into an ankle lock by AJ, which then obviously it works out that they used each other's finishes in a way. But I really wanted to see Kurt Angle land the Styles clash. I thought that would have been great. So yeah, so we end up with, you know, angle slams, phenomenal forearms, Styles clashes a lot, and I think about 40 minutes the match goes on for. But it's brilliant. It's again another one that's available on YouTube. I don't know because I watched it. So yeah, if you haven't seen this match, go and watch it, especially if you're a fan of either or both. If you haven't seen it, or if you just want to watch it again, it is available to watch on YouTube. But the ending, that DDT off it was like it's like a mad DDT off the top rope, wasn't it? Like Styles jumps off the top rope with Angle, and then just sort of like, I don't know, just drives his head into the mat like a DDT, like a face plant, I think. Gets the 3, and then they do the 10 counts, and AJ Styles wins. But again, it's another one where I could have put a couple of AJ Styles versus Kurt Angle matches in there. You know, if it's Shay Angle's best year in WWE is last year, up until obviously before they moved into ECW, you know, like say when he was the world champ, it was what, 2005, 2006. So I think in TNA 2008 must be his best year without even looking, because my 2 matches back to back have both been 2008. So yeah, number 4 is versus AJ Styles in the last man standing match at Hard Justice 2008. So the next 3 I found quite hard to place on my list where to put which one. So anyway, coming in at number 3, and it was hard because I was tempted to even put this at number 1, but it's for different reasons than the actual match itself. So number 3 is versus The Undertaker and nowhere else. 2006. That was the match that they wanted originally for WrestleMania, or Kurt Angle wanted, and the Undertaker wanted for WrestleMania, which they didn't end up going with. But this match is brilliant. Again, like I say, for me, this is my favourite run of Kurt in WWE. You know, he's just a wrestling machine. He's so aggressive. You know, it. I mean, if you haven't, like, again, if you haven't seen it, go out your way and watch it. Like, for me, this is just amazing. Like, it's brilliant. Like, you look at Undertaker at this point where he was come back as the dead man again. And obviously Kurt Angle, the wrestling machine. It shouldn't really work, should it? You know, not realistically. Not like he's facing like a Zack Sabre Jr., a Nigel McGuinness, a Danielson, a Chris Benoit, you know, a technical star wrestler, a Bret Hart. He's wrestling like basically some big dude whose whole gimmick is, you know, he's come back from the dead, and you know his big moves are like chokeslam, powerbomb, tombstone. You know, it shouldn't really work, but it's the way Kurt can reverse these moves, the way he can manipulate the joints. You know, we have Undertaker trying to use the Hell's Gate as well, which was banned for a time, but it's phenomenal, and it is a match I go back and I watch time and time and time again. And to be honest, the reason I was actually going to put this as number one was more of a personal reason than the actual match itself. So then when I went back and watched the match, it is phenomenal, but I do think it should be number 3, based solely on the match, which is what it should be, really, shouldn't it? It shouldn't be based on something that happened for me. So anyway, what happened was, for a while, I've watched wrestling since 90s. I couldn't tell you when. Like, people can pinpoint the year and the match that they first watched, which I think is outstanding. If you can, I'd love to be able to remember the year that I got into wrestling, the match that I got into wrestling. All I know is it was early to mid 90s. About mid 90s, you'd say 96, 97, something like that. So anyway, I watched it, obviously growing up, done the whole tape swap thing when people could record pay-per-views for you. And then it come to a point where it wasn't as accessible for me. I mean, it sounds mad, that, doesn't it? Obviously going to high school, there was a lot less people that watched wrestling that I knew, or that would talk about it. It became a thing that wasn't cool, which was mad, because like in primary school it was the absolute thing to do. You know, when you had like that day where you were able to bring your toys in, everyone brought the wrestling figures in, and then it just became uncool in secondary school, so it became a lot harder to watch. And like I say, we didn't have Sky TV, so I'd be able to watch, what was it at the weekend, like Heat and Velocity, where they trade the highlights from SmackDown and Raw, and then you had, what was the other one, Afterburn and Bottom Line. I watched them in the weekend and get the gist of it, and then couldn't really watch the pay-per-views. That's just go online on the WWE website and find out the results from the night before. So I think a lot of it just got a bit boring. Like, you get to watch like an hour of Heat and an hour of Velocity. That was it of a weekend, and like say, check results, see the odd little highlight package that they used to put up on the website. So anyway, I'd say, I can't remember when it was, say around 2000, I think around 2007, 2008 maybe. There was a year where I'd stopped watching WWE and I just literally watched TNA. Around 2007, something like that. Because WWE, it wasn't easy to access, whereas TNA was. It was on one of the channels that we had. I can't remember which channel it was now, so it was on we had Virgin, so I could just record and watch the next night or the next day. So it was dead easy to access. So I carried on with TNA for about a year maybe, and then even that I got fed up with, and then I stopped watching wrestling, which is mad to think that I actually stopped watching it, because like now I do YouTube channels, and I've got a group on Facebook with 3,000 members. I'm trying to cram in watching like so many hours of wrestling a week. It's ridiculous, and not even finding enough time to do other things. Um, but yeah, I actually stopped watching wrestling, and I'd say I stopped for about completely maybe a year, 2 years, and I can't remember the years. Like how you lot can remember this, that, and the other. It's beyond me because I know a lot of people can pinpoint all sorts. Can't remember what years it was. I think 2009. 2008, 2009, 2010. No, 2008 I think it was. 2009, 2010 I think. I definitely wasn't watching WWE around that time. Because I've later gone back and watched pretty much everything on WWE Network. And me and my missus, um, I think we were quite early into the relationship, so it must have been around 2009. Um, and it was back in one of the old houses that she used to live in. And we were talking about things that we were into and things that we liked as a kid and everything else. Just one of your late nights staying up talking, in the early part of the relationship where you want to know everything about the other one, which you don't anymore. But yeah, so we were talking and I was like, I used to watch wrestling. So she was like, yeah, I used to watch wrestling when I was younger, a lot younger, with a cousin. So they used to watch wrestling together. So then we were talking about like different wrestlers and that, and I was like, oh, who's your favourite wrestler? And she was like, oh, I always loved The Undertaker. Anyway, we were talking about The Undertaker and that, and she wasn't like a die-hard fan at the time she watched it, so she couldn't remember any like matches per se. She just remembered that she really liked The Undertaker. I mean, who doesn't like The Undertaker? It's one of them gimmick that draws people in, isn't it? So we started talking, I was saying about different things, and then the next thing is, I just remember talking about this match. Kurt Angle versus The Undertaker. I was explaining the moves in it. I was explaining the build up to it. I was explaining the significance of it. I was explaining like the fact that it should have been at WrestleMania. And I just remember when we were talking, it must have been about 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm talking about this match and I'm saying it's one of my favourite matches. I love it. And then, but as I'm talking about it, it wasn't just no longer talking about wrestling. I could start to feel that passion again. Like just talking about this match got me all like excited and like, oh yeah, and Kurt Angle done this and The Undertaker done this, and it was like, whoa. And then at the end, when Kurt Angle won, The Undertaker grabbed him, showed him respect, and it's a really big thing. I could feel myself in the passion, and I was getting fired up of talking about this match. So anyway, I ended it with, because I still had all my wrestling DVDs. It's not like I fell out of love with it and that was it. I wanted it all done and gone and everything. Plus I'm a hoarder and I don't tend to bin things. So I was like, I actually have the pay-per-view on DVD. I was like, if you fancied watching, I can bring a couple of wrestling DVDs down maybe. So she was like, yeah, It was like the beginning of a relationship, like say, by a year in maybe, where you're trying to impress each other. Like I tried watching soaps for some strange reason, and obviously she tried watching my wrestling DVDs. And so anyway, brings this pay-per-view round, and there's a couple of matches on there that I wanted to show, but I was desperate to get us to watch this. And she loved it, and we were just talking about it all the way through, showing her all the different matches on the pay-per-view, and she was like proper enjoying it. And then she was like, oh, have you got any more wrestling DVDs? Should bring them more out and more out. So I brought like pretty much my whole collection in the end and ended up leaving it there. And I had my Xbox 360 at the time, so it brings some wrestling games when we play them. And I just started slowly, and I thought, I can't even remember what WrestleMania it was, but anyway, I think it might have been the first WrestleMania that had John Cena versus The Rock, maybe. I think that was the first one we then watched together. So yeah, I think without even looking at WWE, I might have got back into wrestling for a couple of months without even watching any up-to-date wrestling. It was just rewatching my old DVDs and talking about it and stuff. So I was back in the wrestling book, not actually watching wrestling, but it was basically from talking about this match, because we were talking about other things now, and it just didn't seem to be that much. It was like, oh yeah, Shawn Michaels versus Stone Cold, and Triple H versus The Rock, and blah blah blah. And then it was like when I was talking about this match, I just felt myself like really. I don't know whether it was just because it was like 3 o'clock in the morning and it was half asleep, and then all of a sudden just adrenaline hit or what. But I got really, really excited talking about this match, and it was like, this is the match I need to show you, and you'll love wrestling if you watch this match. And she did. She watched it and she loved it. So yeah, it got me back into wrestling. Just talking about it, it's mad. But it still remains to me one of my favourite matches of all time. I love it, and I do say, at any time. I mean, you've probably heard the story before if we're close. Like this match got me back into wrestling, and that's why it will always remain one of my favourite matches because it did. And it's mad to think it wasn't just because it was at the time. It was talking about it a couple of years later that got me back into it, and I think that in itself is brilliant. So it definitely makes me Kurt Angle top 5. Like I say, I could have even put it at number 1, but that has just been for the fact that it got me back into watching wrestling after not watching it for so long. Rather than the match itself, yes, the match is phenomenal, and it is one of my favourite matches, but it does come in on my list at number 3 because I do feel like there is just two matches that are better in ring wise. So we go to number 2. It's Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania. I mean, I couldn't not have this in. So before we had Undertaker and Shawn Michaels bangers, we had Shawn Michaels versus Kurt Angle. Like, I loved this. I loved everything about this. This for me was brilliant from the build up. You know, I mean, you can't talk about this match and not talk about Sexy Kurt. I mean, that is still something that people talk about to this day. You still see the memes, the gifs, and you hear him saying about it on his podcast. By the way, I've listened to a few episodes of his podcast and they're quite decent. I'm just not a massive fan of people that basically just rewatch shows while talking about it. But there has been a few that I have listened to and they have been quite decent. It's not something I can listen to consistently, unfortunately. But, you know, he talks about this on that, and, you know, it is one of the biggest parts of the whole match that you remember. But, you know, Shawn Michaels is like, again, another phenomenal talent, and if I can somehow manage to pick just 5 matches of Shawn Michaels, I can do a top 5 for him too at some point, and I could just do top 5 WrestleMania matches. Like, straight away, I've got 3, the 2 with The Undertaker and this one. But yeah, this was like match of the year. I remember people talking about this for ages. You know, and when you talk about like WrestleMania, and you talk about Mr. WrestleMania, as they say, Shawn Michaels. This is definitely one of those matches that I'd like just. It's one of the things that you can only do so many times in a career, and I feel like this was Kurt Angle's best WrestleMania moments. In fact, it is. It is Kurt Angle's best WrestleMania moments. He hasn't had a bigger moment than this. You know, it was match of the year. People were talking about it forever. I remember going to school and everyone was like, "Oh, did you see Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle?" You know, but they were given the time, they were given the platform to do it on, and I feel like that's what a lot of people are missing out. Nowadays, they don't get that time in the platform unless you are a quote unquote Vince guy. Unfortunately, and I know Vince was both fond on Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels, so that's probably why it happened. But again, it is a phenomenal match, and you know, I don't actually think this is available on YouTube. I don't know where on. I don't know because I've got W Network, we use that, which by the way has become a pain in the ass to use. You can't just select the matches anymore like you used to be able to. You've got to now hold the forward button, and it just made it really, really awkward and annoying. But I think somewhere I've got this WrestleMania on DVD, so maybe I know I give a lot of DVDs away when Network was a thing at the beginning, especially because you'd signed off to it for so long. I was like, I'm never going to watch my DVDs again. There's a couple that I didn't get rid of. So maybe I need to start going down the old DVD collection route because it's just easier to pick a match. I feel like I've segued massively on this whole entire episode and I really apologise. So anyway, I'm going to speed it on because we're coming up to the half hour mark anyway. So yes, number 2 is versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania. absolute phenomenal match. I'd say apart from the 2 matches against the Undertaker, so like up until this point, and they had this match, then that was Shawn Michaels' best WrestleMania match, and it's definitely Kurt Angle's best WrestleMania match. And I find it, and it's hard as well because like I say, I wanted to keep his top 5 because I didn't want the video going long, and then I end up rambling all the way through the video, which I never do. That's why I keep the top 5. But if it would have been top 6, it would have been Kurt Angle versus Eddie Guerrero at WrestleMania 20. You know, that is a fantastic match, and I probably didn't appreciate that one as much at the time that it was going on, because it was just like chain wrestling type, wasn't it? It was like technical and stuff, and I wasn't a massive fan into technical wrestling back at the time that it happened. It was only a couple of years later when I rewatched it a couple of times because I had it on DVD. That was the first WrestleMania I bought on DVD, WrestleMania 20. It was only a couple of times going back and rewatching it. Like, I'd rewatched that pay-per-view to death. And it was then later as I'm older that I appreciated it more. But yeah, so if there could have been a top 6, that would have been my number 6, and it was in that. I took it out and put it in, and took it out. But yeah, the match with Shawn Michaels is slightly better than the match with Eddie Guerrero, so that's why it makes me top 5 list. Whereas the Eddie Guerrero one doesn't, unfortunately. So I'll run down 5, and then I'll give you number 1. But if you are a Kurt Angle fan, you must know what his best match is, and especially if it hasn't appeared so far on my list, you can probably have a guess what it is. So number 5 is in the Lockdown Steel Cage match versus Samoa Joe. Number 4 is the Last Man Standing match versus AJ Styles at Hard Justice 2008. Number 3 is one of my favourite matches of all time and what got me back into wrestling. Is the match against The Undertaker, No Way Out 2006. Number 2 is the match against the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, at WrestleMania. So that only leaves us with one option. And what could it be? You guessed it, Kurt Angle versus Baron Corbin at No, I'm only joking. Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit, of course, at WrestleMania 2000. WrestleMania, I've thrown myself now. Royal Rumble 2003 for the WWE Championship. And this is, again, it's one of them matches I can rewatch forever. It really is. Again, another one I owned on DVD. It's just Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit. You know, you can't talk about Kurt Angle without talking about Benoit. And I know people don't like to talk about Benoit because of what happened and everything else. That's fine, that's your choice. And to be honest with you, if you don't like people talking about Benoit, then turn off this YouTube video right now. It doesn't really bother me. I will talk about Benoit. I'm not going to go into the whole thing of what happened. Everyone knows. I'm not going to give my thoughts, opinions, anything else. I'm just going to talk about the wrestling. So you can't talk about Kurt Angle without talking about Chris Benoit. And that is why Kurt Angle says you will talk about Chris Benoit, because you can't talk about his career. Otherwise, there's large portions of his career you can't talk about. It's like, you know, this match, you know, his early runs in the IC division, in the WWF Championship division, then later on the WWE Championship division. You know, they held tag team titles. They were the first WWE Tag Team Champions on SmackDown back in 2002. You know, so there's so much that he would have to miss out of his career. And for me, this is his best match ever. So if you take away Chris Benoit, then you take away Kurt Angle's best ever match, which is mad, isn't it? So anyway, it brings also to the fact that, you know, people talk about the star ratings and that, and sometimes it does make me laugh when I look at the star ratings, and some of the star ratings that Dave Meltzer, by the way, I'm talking about, gives, some of them are quite close to where they should be, and some of them are just outrageous. But it's all opinion based, isn't it? But the fact he's never given Kurt Angle 5 stars. Have you even ever watched this match? Like, there's no way this match isn't 5 stars. It's fantastic. You know, it's hold after hold, it's move after move, it's near fall after near fall. You know, we even get like Kurt Angle leaves at the end. having retained the belt, and then the standing ovation for Chris Benoit for just nearly getting that main title. The standing ovation was brilliant. And it's rare that you'll get a Royal Rumble where the most talked about thing isn't the Royal Rumble match, whether it be good or bad. The Royal Rumble match is normally the go home talking point. Like, I remember thinking, like, it doesn't even matter who won the Royal Rumble in 2003, because the only thing that matters was Kurt Angle vs Chris Benoit. And I mean, like I'd say, if you haven't watched it, but I suppose if you're up to this point in a Kurt Angle video, there's no way you haven't seen Angle Benoit. It is a technical masterpiece. It is fantastic from beginning to end, for pacing, for moments, just the whole thing. I can't even pinpoint things. It is that good. Cross faces, diving headbutts, ankle locks, ankle slams. There's that much that goes into it, but the timing, the in-ring chemistry is just on point. Like, there's no not knowing what's coming next. They just glide around the ring, and it is one of the best matches of all time. And every time when people put stuff up, like on the group and stuff, where it's like, if you could have, I don't know, wrestling matches in a Hall of Fame, or if you could have what are some of your favourite matches, or what are some matches that you recommend people watch if they've never watched wrestling and stuff, my first thought's always this match. This is definitely, in fact, this might actually be my favourite ever singles match. I mean, it's hard to say that because I've watched so many matches from so many different companies over so many different years. This could actually be my favourite singles match, because my favourite match of all time is a triple threat match, but this might actually be my favourite singles match. But it's definitely worthy of the number one spot, and I'm sure most of you will agree. But I've rambled on for long enough, so my top 5, number 1 is versus Chris Benoit at the Royal Rumble in 2003. So I thought I'd take this podcast a slightly different route. Instead of doing what I normally do and just reel off different highlights and points and stuff that happened in the matches. And I've talked about other things in regards to the matches. So that is another thing that I would like some feedback from, if you could. Which way do you prefer me doing the rankings video? Do you just like me highlighting all the highlight spots that happened in the match? Or do you like me just talking about other things, like what it means to me and how much I enjoyed it and stuff like that? So let me know in the comments which way you preferred it. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with my Kurt Angle top 5 matches, in which order they're in, which matches were used, which matches were missed off, like obviously like the Eddie Guerrero match. And just let me know in the comments what your general feels are. And as always, thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more wrestling related content coming your way soon. Thanks.